Rushes on the far side. Is this three? It is! And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Good evening. Anyone who knows football would recognise the current FA Cup. But this is what the original trophy looked like. The competition is the oldest and most famous in the world. It's been going on for 117 years. From this weekend on, BBC Television Only will bring you just about as comprehensive a coverage of the Cup as you can get. Tomorrow night, we'll have highlights of some of the outstanding third-round ties. On Sunday, it's the Cup Live, West Ham v Arsenal. Giants and giant killers, heroes and hard luck stories. Football where there must be winners and losers. That's the romance of the FA Cup.
Only an old silver pot, but kings have been reflected in its lustre, and kids still brandish it to imaginary multitudes in their bright-eyed dreams. It all started here at the Oval Cricket Ground when the Wanderers beat the Royal Engineers in the first final. The Engineers got there by beating Hitchin, Hampstead Heathens and Crystal Palace. £20 that first trophy cost. The Wanderers won it outright and gave it back. But only a £10 reward was offered when the cup was stolen. Aston Villa had put it on show in a cobbler's window. They never got it back. It was melted down to make counterfeit half-crowns. A replica was used for 15 years and then given to Lord Kinnaird, president of the FA for 21 years. Bradford was where the present trophy was made, and Bradford City won it the first time it was played for, in 1911. In 1923, Wembley opened with room for everyone, or so they thought, until 250,000 came to see West Ham play Bolton, and a policeman proved you can take a white horse anywhere. 13 years later...
Stop that man, he's got a camera. Ball. Thanks for trying, Sydney.
A newsreel company found that the same wasn't true of cameras. An autogyro, as they were called then, was used to shoot Arsenal's victory over Sheffield United. In 1938, radio commentator Tommy Woodruff saw Huddersfield concede a penalty in extra time after he'd sworn to eat his hat if Preston won the cup.
Watch it taking it, here it comes. And it's a goal!
It was radio and then television that shrank the world to make the cup more than just a domestic drama.
The linesman has flagged, and Wimbledon may well thrive on a free kick in this position. Wise will obviously take it.
Last year, there was the first ever penalty save in a final, as Wimbledon wrote the ultimate underdog story. Non-league to cup winners in 11 years. The Oval became famous for a pitch that sloped less steeply than the Cresta Run, but many famous names slid to disaster on it, not least Sunderland, a power in the First Division when Alex Stock's goal shoved them over the edge in 1949. Burslem in the Potteries came out in a cup rash in '54. Port Vale were heading for promotion from the Third Division North when Blackpool, winners in the famous Matthews final the previous May, arrived at Vale Park. Albert Leake did for them, with a couple of goals in this fifth-round tie, and Vale went on, past Leyton Orient, to lose to West Bromwich Albion in the semi-final. But only last season, Port Vale, back in the Third Division, were at it again, this time at the expense of Spurs.
This is Walker. Yes! Oh, Ray Walker! Brilliant!
No more joy for Tottenham then than there was in 1955 when they were drawn away to Third Division York in the fifth round. George Robb put Spurs ahead, But the frosty pitch was the kind that gives First Division teams cup nightmares. Spurs woke up to a 3-1 defeat and 2-goal Norman Wilkinson to his name in the Sunday headlines. More recently, Keith Houchin carved another notch on York's FA Cup record. Victims this time, Arsenal.
And he's done it! The third division side score in the 90th minute.
In 1987, there was the same Keith Houchin in a Wembley final, scoring for Coventry City in their 3-2 victory against poor old Tottenham again. For many people, Norwich used to be a cathedral, a mustard factory and a third division football team, until skipper Ron Ashman and that prolific goalscorer Terry Bly made us all in 1959 into canary fancies. Tottenham played their part here too, beaten in this fifth-round tie. Norwich eventually lost to Luton in a replayed semi-final. As those Canary fans showed, the FA Cup mocks the notion of English reserve, the fear that we might make ourselves look just the tiniest bit daft.
Now, what are you doing down here during the week? Are you in special training?
Yes, I'm in special training this week, trying to get my monocle in position.
In the 60s, Oxford United with Ron Atkinson shared a record with Colchester by reaching the 6th round as a 4th division side. It was Colchester who humbled a great Leeds team in '71.
Orange Spray missed it and Crawford got it. Crawford's there. 2-0 for Colchester. And Simmons 1 against 1 here. Simmons and Reedy. And it's there.
What happened to Jack Charlton's Leeds at Colchester happened to Malcolm MacDonald's Newcastle at non-league Hereford the following year.
McDonald coming in. That's it. Radford. Now Tudor's gone down for Newcastle. Radford again. Oh, what a goal! What a goal! Radford the scorer. George. Oh, he's got it! Ricky George!
In the next round, Hereford lost to West Ham after a replay. But 2 years later, now a third division club, Hereford had their revenge. A goal by Alan Jones beat West Ham in round 3. But talking of upstarts, remember the Leatherhead Lip, the nickname Chris Kelly acquired when the Cup rainbow fell upon Surrey? Or remember this routine? And who can forget Malcolm Allison in the Lucky Fedora? It was in 1976 that his third division Crystal Palace beat Chelsea in the 5th round.
Taylor! Oh, what a goal by Peter Taylor!
And there were 54,000 at Stamford Bridge to see it happen. But the Cup is a fickle mistress. 3 years later, Allison took high-flying Manchester City to Shrewsbury. And if 2-0 defeat there wasn't the kiss of death, well, the cold winter lights of Halifax and the sodden pitch at the Shea the following year undoubtedly were. Paul Hendry scores, Halifax 1, Allison 0, no sign of the Fedora. There's no predicting where Cup thunderbolts will land. That same year, Harlow drew at Leicester and won the replay. The celebrated Iron Bridge at Telford seems to attract lightning. It was in the 1985 4th round that this Eddie Hogan goal left Darlington, like several other league clubs before them, to be a reluctant audience for the concert in the Bath next door. Altrincham hold the record for dismissing league opponents, 14 in all, some just names in the annuals now, others like First Division Birmingham in 1986 on tape for posterity.
Foxy, what was the show? Come on, LP, do it again!
Derby County were mugged in 1984 by Plymouth, most recent semi-finalists from Division 3.
Cherry in trouble, and straight in! Rogers the scorer.
Sooner or later, the highest and mightiest come away muttering about being free to concentrate on the league. Manchester United were the cup holders in 1984, but goals by Milton Graham, and then by Ian Thompson sent Bournemouth through in this third-round tie. In earlier years, Manchester United had paid Bournemouth £200,000 for a man who just set a record for goals in one FA Cup game, Ted McDougall, who scored 9 of 11 in the first-round tie against Margate. The record career total for cup goals is 41 by Dennis Law. It doesn't include 6 wiped out when the game was abandoned, but it does include 1 in the final. George Best once scored 6 in a Manchester United cup tie, and they counted. But George's league exploits always overshadowed his cup career. Greatness guarantees nothing in the cup. Johnny Haynes of Fulham in England was another supreme artist who missed the supreme prize. And until 1953, it seemed that Stanley Matthews would suffer the same fate. But then came the emotional final for Blackpool against Bolton Wanderers that everyone remembers.
Well, the man who's really fighting for his cup medal. Could he score the winning goal now himself? It's there! Final! What a final!
In Coronation Year, it had seemed almost inevitable that the maestro would crown his career to universal acclaim. He'd already been on the losing side twice. Frank Stapleton holds the best modern record of all, 3 winners and 2 losers' medals with Manchester United and Arsenal. But there are some players whose whole career seems to be remembered for one blinding moment in the cup. Sunderland's Ian Porterfield and Jimmy Montgomery in 1973.
Leeds are really pushing forward. Cherry, brilliant save, and Lorimer makes it 1 each. No!
The celebration that followed was in the long-established tradition that the cup is for everyone. In 1930, the Graf Zeppelin put in a Wembley appearance. Politicians, some more noted for their love of the game than others, have rarely found themselves able to refuse a seat in the royal box for the big day of the year in the people's game. The competition goes on for virtually the whole season, even when the weather's not as mild as this year. Much of it goes unnoticed by the nation at large. Many players ended their cup run this season, while others of us were still sunning ourselves on holiday. The survivors will all feel they're there on merit, and they'll all believe this could be their year. The records show how hard it is. Many times clubs have come into spring with hopes of the double, but few achieve it. The democracy of the cup is plain. Certain names do recur on the honours board, but there's no monopoly. So when Brian Robson sets off tomorrow hoping to lift the trophy for a 3rd time, Brentford will remind him that they have a player who's also had the honour twice, their manager Steve Perryman. Brian Clough, on the other hand, has never won the cup. But such is fate. Our live match of the day on Sunday features clubs who met in the final 9 years ago.
Oh, Devonshire's round the back. Oh, right across, it's free. Driven in. And is it a goal? It is. Trevor Brooking.
Gerald Sinstadt reporting, and yes, it's West Ham v Arsenal, our live 3rd round match this Sunday. Now, already this season, taking the preliminary rounds into consideration, 461 clubs have been knocked out of the Cup, leaving 64 for this 3rd round. More than 6,000 players will have been involved by the time we get to the Cup final on May the 20th. A few are superstars, household names. Others are household names only in their own houses.
I've only ever played the game for the love of the game. The social side at Welling over the years has never changed. It's been one of the main reasons that I've played there.
When I do walk away from the game, I would think I'm comfortable enough to think I've put enough away, invested in, with the property and things like that. I've done enough now, I would think, to see myself a comfortable living.
I'm quite happy in my own little world, so to speak, to be known amongst my friends, and I certainly wouldn't have changed my career in any way.
It's Beardsley. Deflection, and driven in by Chris Waddle.
Money has never mattered to me. I think I get about £25 a week at the moment. And if they throw a drink into the changing room afterwards for a win bonus, then that's great by me. But I wouldn't expect any more. I wouldn't want any more, really, I don't think.
Well, Chris Waddle's win bonus will amount to more than a pint of beer. He has all the trappings of a top player, a detached house in the Hertfordshire stockbroker belt, and a brand new car that does everything but drive itself. And when training is done for another day, the hard work really begins.
And I said, John can come in and put all the boards up if the decorator can take that board down.
Lorna Waddle has all the ideas, but you can bet your life Chris won't be up the ladder. It was obvious from an early age where Chris's future lay, but his new reported £1.5 million contract is a far cry from his days in the sausage factory back home.
It happened quite quick. It did happen quick, and at times, yeah, I found it hard to adjust at first to sort of the way of life of footballer lives, to sort of life the sausage factory had, that sort of life. They were very hard. You know, when I first went to Newcastle, Friday night was a night out with the lads, and you know, obviously you can't go out 2 nights before a game, but I was still going out with the lads early on, and I found it very hard to adjust.
Making their debut on top of the box tonight, Glenn and Chris.
Well, it's not glory, glory Tottenham Hotspur, but a couple of years ago when Hoddle and Waddle got together, their eyes were firmly fixed on the top 10.
We thought it would chart, but we didn't think that it would get in the top 10 sort of thing. So it was good. You know, I know it was sort of, I've got it on video. You know, appear on top of the pops and that, and even though I looked at Pratt, I think on that night, you know, it's still something I always wanted to do, and I've been lucky enough to have a go at it. You know, you get a lot of stick off people, and especially the other players, and they're all ribbing about it. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of people you get offered a lot of stupid things like that, really. And when you look back, you think, I wish I'd have done them.
1987 was a big year for Chris Waddle, an FA Cup run all the way to Wembley, and that hit record. Come 1989, and music is still in his blood, and he's really arrived now. The obligatory book's a sellout, a reprint's on the way. It's packed with cup memories, like the night Exeter hammered Newcastle.
Chris Waddle in here for Newcastle, good save by Bond.
And they beat the 4-0, and it's totally embarrassing.
But 6 years later,
Chris Waddle. It's his... Allen! Clive Allen! Would you believe it?
And there was 5 goals, a lot of chances. So, you know, most people have said it's the best final they've saw for years. So, and that said, we took a lot out of it.
The following season, the millionaires were at Port Vale.
Waddle's in the middle. He's pulled it behind them all. Allen. Now Waddle. It's easy. Oh, he's missed it.
There's no hiding place for a player like Chris Waddle, a high profile, high rewards, and yet...
I appreciate all this, but I would still love to have a little medal with winners on it. That is something I've never achieved anything. You know, even when we won promotion with Newcastle, we come third. Didn't get a championship medal that year even. So, you know, it would be just nice to have something with a W on it.
It's the other side of football's ambition as Nigel Ranson battles back after injury.
And this is Duncan Jones at the sports desk. Soccer first, the Welling skipper Nigel Ransom is set to return to the side for this morning's GM conference game with Fisher. Ransom has recovered from a broken nose and has been included in the squad by manager Nick Brigden as the Wings try to stretch their unbeaten run to 8 games.
Nigel's career as a central defender has never climbed out of the basement of non-league football. But Dad Bertie has watched most of the 750 games that he's played for the Vauxhall Conference team Welling, a side that he joined when they still turned out on the local park just a mile from his home.
Well, obviously, having played for Welling for 15 odd years, this is the biggest game in the club's history. It's the biggest game for myself as well. Third round of the FA Cup, we talk about the first round being the glory games because you have a chance of playing a 3rd or 4th division side. We've got past that into the 2nd round. We still haven't drawn a league side, and now we've reached the 3rd round and we've finally got Blackburn Rovers, so it's going to be the biggest game. Morning, Nigel Ransom.
It's ironic that training has to be squeezed in between full-time occupation with the sponsors of the Football League.
Actual hours with the bank are 9 to 5. Normally they're a little bit longer than that. And then training with Welling is 2 nights a week. But if we have a game, then perhaps it's a game one night and then training another night. Training would probably last something like 2 or 3 hours. So sometimes it is difficult. Obviously with your own work commitments, it's hard at times to get off to actually complete a full training session, but we all do the best we can.
After missing 5 games with a broken nose, Nigel returned to the team last week as an 80th minute substitute, posing problems of cup selection for the manager.
Nigel is one of 3 centre-backs in our system. Nigel's a very strong individual player, and he's very strong on his left side, which makes him unique to our setup.
Well, I don't think I'd ever describe myself as being one of the most skillful players, but I would certainly say that I always give 110%, and I think that's really why I've stayed in this standard of football for so long, really. I'm not near the end of my career, I hope, at the moment, but I think that is my main attribute, always giving 110%.
The monetary rewards for players like Nigel amount to little more than beer money for the aristocrats from the First Division, but the FA Cup still provides everybody's big day.
It means an awful lot to the club, obviously. Financially, we probably get £20,000 out of that day, although we have had to spend £15,000 on the ground improvements.
That doesn't leave much for players' bonuses, does it? What's it worth to the players?
No, the players will be looked after. They're going to drink out of the day, but there's an awful more to it, really, than financial rewards.
Saturday's 3rd round will be the height of a career that's earned its own showcase of modest silverware.
A couple of years ago, we won the Southern League, which is the league below the league we play in at the moment. And the Cup at the same time. So in other words, we did the double that year. That was probably the highest honour I've got from football. But there are other trophies for rugby, golf, along the lines. I'd have loved to have seen myself in a good team, just to see for my own self exactly how I would have got on. Obviously everybody thinks they believe in their own ability. You have to believe in your own ability. But I would have liked to have played in a league side just to see, to satisfy myself.
Tony Gubber and Eddie Hemmings, the reporters there. Incidentally, Welling, Sutton and Kettering are the 3 non-league survivors. Now, Jimmy's with us, looking very much forward to the weekend's Cup football, like the rest of us. What was your best record as a manager of a club in the Cup, Jim?
With Coventry City, when they're a 3rd division side, and we actually beat Sunderland in the 5th round at home. We stole the match. They were outclassed us, played beautifully until the last 15 minutes. And then we stole 2 goals, and the crowd went mad, and it didn't matter how anybody had played. We were through the next round, which was against Manchester United in the 6th round. Farthest Coventry had gone until the year before last. And we made a mistake, actually. It was the year of the freeze, and we played Manchester United in Dublin in a friendly. We managed to borrow the Shamrock Rovers ground. And we were 2-0 up at half-time, and it rather took them by surprise. And at half-time, there was no Coventry team talk. The walls were thin, and we were all listening to Matt's team talk, sort of chivying up his Manchester United lads. But it worked against us because they won the match at Highfield Road 3-1. They were paired, came there and beat us.
So that was the furthest you got.
Sadness.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit, Jim, to your baggy shorts days, if we may. January the 28th, 1956, 2nd Division Fulham v Newcastle United, the Cup holders, in round 4 of that year's competition. Close on 40,000 people packed into Craven Cottage. A bit of late team news that day. Jay Hill loses number 8 shirt to a 22-year-old Bobby Robson. Hill plays in unaccustomed role on the wing. First goal of the match coming up.
Corner to Newcastle, taken by Mitchell. It's a good one. Up goes Curry's head out to Milburn. And it's a lovely goal, a beautiful goal by Milburn. 17 minutes gone. Newcastle take the lead with a goal by Milburn.
Newcastle added a second through Bob Stokoe, and here now is their 3rd goal.
Notice how they've got the Fulham defence running round 6s and 7s. Stokoe, and up goes Keeble, but Black gets it this time, and now Casey. It's there, a goal by Casey. 25 minutes gone, it's 3-0.
Newcastle well on their way to round 5 then. However, Fulham came back. A hat-trick by Tosh Chamberlain squares it at 3-3, and it's now late in the 2nd half.
Chamberlain for Fulham, the side that has created the sensation by rattling the cup holders and now leading, now drawing 3-all. Chamberlain getting through. It goes, there's Jezard, it's a goal! It's Fulham has taken the lead!
time-honoured fashion, Jim, you better talk us through it again.
Well, it was my good friend Betty Jessett, number 9, heading it down, and as you can see, it was an awesome goal with great power from a yard, and just think of the energy that that particular player running there had at that stage of the match, having gone through what he'd gone through. Really, the reason was I didn't want to be kissed by those Eddie Lowe. Who would want to be kissed by Eddie Lowe in those circumstances?
You used more effort going back than going forward, I think, Jim. But of course, that wasn't the complete story. Do you remember what happened next?
Yeah, I thought it was the winning goal, but watch this foul now on Ian Black. Elbow pushed over the goal line, but it was allowed. That wouldn't be allowed these days. I'd like a replay tomorrow morning. We shan't get it. And then, of course, having 4-4, the most marvellous match, having been 3-0 down, Newcastle very sadly ruined our day. It didn't ruin it, really. It cost us £2 bonus, which was an enormous amount, by scoring that goal. But I've never forgotten the way the crowd got excited during that game. They threw their hats in the air, and more people lost their hats that day than in the history of football.
But 5-4 to Newcastle, but a good day for you.
A wonderful day,
yes.
Yeah.
And nearly 40,000 there, quite extraordinary.
Yes, yes.
And as I say, like the rest of us, you're looking forward to the Cup once again. You
I'm
never tire of it.
Yeah, we both are quite excited
Certainly.
This weekend, because we've got a lot to see and a lot to look at. And I don't think the Cup ever before has been spread as wide. You know, we're casting our net, and that's appreciated by the public. I've got a lot of letters saying that,
Absolutely
and
right.
that's excited me too.
So coming up over the next few days, FA Cup Focus with Bob Wilson at 12:20 in Grandstand tomorrow. As usual in Grandstand, first information of all the Cup results. Tomorrow night at 9:55, match of the day, the road to Wembley. We cover 3 of the day's outstanding ties, plus goals from other games. Then on Sunday, it's West Ham v Arsenal, live from Upton Park at 3 o'clock. Then on Monday morning in breakfast time at 7:45, the draw for the 4th round. From the Wanderers to Wimbledon, the Cup has been a compelling 117-year-old story. Enjoy the latest chapter of that story with us. Bye-bye.